Good morning. How you doing this morning? Normal dad duty, early mornings.
We moved here about a month ago and just trying to find fun ways to get around here has been an experience.
Probably an adventure, just like finding like the safer, like more comfortable routes to take.
Adventures, yeah.
That's a gentle way to put it.
I'm still learning about it. Time of day makes a difference too. This is kind of prime time at 8 a.m. That in like 4:30. There's only like two parts that don't feel bike friendly, but we'll get through it.
We're gonna do it together. We're here in Torrance, California this morning. We're gonna do a ride along with our friend Kyle and his two sons. We've done some, Landon, and Everett, and Kyle, and I'm Chris. And we're gonna have some fun today, just riding along, showing a bit of a different experience of getting to school. We started early, it's getting later, but we don't wanna be late, so let's get on the road.
They have dinosaur statues at Hawthorne that we sometimes take time to look at.
I want to go look at dinos.
You guys really like the dinos.
Yeah.
T-Rex!
Wow, a daddy.
Have one of these as a lawn ornament.
Right there.
I bet you're
Pretty
there.
serious.
Well, this and other areas, it's easier to explore. Areas where you typically need to park, but you can just get off your bike. There's a little bit of a bump on the other side of the road where you gotta make sure cars aren't coming. I've lost a few coffees here. I don't have one now. So this is actually kind of a safe space. Oh, at this time of day, there's not many cars.
Do you feel that motorists are generally like respectful of you, or like?
I'm trying to gauge that, but generally speaking, yes.
I think sometimes having kids with you might change the dynamic a little bit.
Oh, for sure. So I ride my own electric bike by myself, and it's either something I feel internally or something I'm experiencing from vibes I'm getting from someone else. It's a much different experience.
Yeah.
This is where the bike lane starts.
Sorry, I know it's a little tricky.
So it's helpful.
If you want to take the lane, we could hop out here.
Okay.
Now we have somewhat of a bike lane. Certainly having the space is better than but I guess, do you ever feel like, hey, I wish that this was like a protected bike lane? Or
Of course that would be better, but I'll take anything I can get. Even like a wide shoulder makes a big difference.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you know this, but these little black circles are sensors.
But they don't always pick up a bike though.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Actually, to my understanding, they sense like the amount of metal. I've seen people actually take their bike and lay it down on the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know if the aluminum works so
Not
much.
as well.
In some places, they actually have cameras that have sensors, and they actually can detect like the types of, if it's a pedestrian, a cyclist, whatever, and they actually change the timing of the light based on, who is at the light, which is kind of interesting.
All those things probably cost $40.
Yeah.
But there's so many intersections. The
Do
white
you ever
car.
do the walk signal?
Not here.
Well, I'm gonna do it. This is what I do sometimes. I'll hit the walk signal. I have some experience biking in places without much infrastructure. Did you know about this? Push for green light.
Yeah.
Have you used that before? No.
I'm not.
All right, we're
in my
gonna
own
use it
experience,
today.
like,
We're gonna use it today.
People get pretty aggressive about right-hand turns.
Yeah, I guess that's the challenge, right? Not the easiest to hold a conversation on this road, so we're just gonna kind of try to book it to the kids' school. Hopefully they're not gonna be late. Let's go. So this road is 35 miles an hour. In New York, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour pretty consistently throughout the city, and definitely makes you feel a bit safer. Oh, we got another one. We got another button. Tara, show the hill.
Well, Everett, what do you tell Daddy? Go, Daddy, go. Go, Daddy, go. As an architect, we get to design parking for all these buildings, and something that's come forth in California recently was bike parking, and it's incredibly challenging to get all these things into a project.
Is there a requirement right now for bike parking?
Oh yeah,
There
it's
is.
It's like
pretty
we
aggressive.
manage space, and space is expensive.
Sure.
And it's generally speaking like one bike space per apartment. If you have 100 units.
Does that ultimately reduce the car parking?
In Los Angeles, you can get I think 25 or 30% reduction in car parking.
Okay.
which is millions of dollars.
Right, because each, I think it's like what, 70,000 on average per.
50, yeah, that's probably right. I would say 50, but it's probably grown
Okay.
since then. So bike parking's been going forth as a way to reduce parking demand. Generally, developers go for it, but there's nothing for electrical outlets by those bike parking spaces.
Just gonna let them do their thing, and we'll catch back up with Kyle in a minute.
You want to say bye?
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Hasta la pasta.
You guys ready? We're gonna walk from here. So we're gonna do a left and then a quick right. And in this neighborhood, generally I feel like most people are very careful around bikes.
I guess it also depends. Like certain areas, there seem to be more families than others. You know, I would imagine on some level, if you like have kids, you might be more likely to be like respectful of bikes and that sort of thing. Although sometimes people are just in a rush. And they're just like, you know, everything goes out the window. I got to get to my destination. And you're just in my way.
That's what happens when you're near a highway or near a service road to the highway and everyone's 5 minutes late and freaking out.
From my side, I think that it's a lot of like this stuff was just already happening at a slower pace, but COVID just effectively accelerated a lot of that. So I think everything that you were anticipating is going to happen in 10 years from now, it's probably going to happen in the next couple of years.
I try to ride that confidence, riding my electric bike in Torrance, thinking it's coming.
Yeah.
Having worked in the business of buildings and infrastructure, like a quick project is 3 years. So generally speaking, I think bikers need to advance before the infrastructure comes. And buildings are much quicker to design than roads and bridges and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, actually, speaking with a friend of mine that works for the city in Long Beach, they're putting in a protected bike lane. They got a grant for it, so they got money for it, and it's actually outside money. It's not from the city specifically. And so, like, when do we think that we're going to actually see this on the road? 5 years, likely 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be 3 years before they actually start construction. So the first couple years is, you know, connecting with the community, getting some,
outreach,
you know, feedback and
design, subcontracting it, building,
so,
more neighborhood negotiation.
And I guess it's the thing, like you think about like the Netherlands or something like that, where the infrastructure is great by most people's standards, but they started on that in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
They were like really advocating and pushing for that stuff in the 70s. They also didn't have a culture that was kind of pushing against it as much, maybe. But
What's interesting about those cities, though, is they were car-driven up until the 70s, maybe,
Right.
for like 20 years.
I think it was like the gas and oil crisis, right? And then
Yeah, probably.
you know, interesting in the timing, having this discussion, thinking about it, you know, at that time there was a bike boom as a result of the rising gas prices. People don't want to use a car as much. And now we have a bike boom again, but like, how do you keep that? My feeling, you keep that with infrastructure. You know, you keep that momentum with infrastructure.
I agree. Yeah, so that's the other way of thinking about it is you do need those spaces that make people feel safe.
I know in Long Beach, for example, they have like a bike master plan. Do they have one here?
California has fairly progressive planning such that you don't receive state money unless you put forth transportation studies that reduce the carbon footprint, more or less. And
Right,
so,
they have a lot of other organizations that factor into that too, like the Air Resource Board, for example, right?
Yeah. Air quality is a big part of it. Cynically, like putting a paint strip on the street is a good way of like promoting bike culture.
Right. It's kind of like putting a bumper sticker and saying like, I support this thing, right? Like some level.
When the environmental concern came about, maybe in 2008, for a large audience, there were these laws in California that said, check here if you want to reduce greenhouse gases. Everyone did, or the majority of people did, and all those laws have now been implemented, and it's things like the results are reduced parking demand on buildings, increased public transportation, increased bike lanes.
But yeah, that's really interesting. It's interesting how all these, like, it's everything has an impact though, right?
Some of these things are like a snowball. Like, you start off small and then you gather momentum over time and then it just rolls on its own. I would say this is our station wagon. Use this bike to carry our kids around. My wife has ridden this bike and enjoys it. She's still finding her comfort level on it. She definitely needs the infrastructure and so forth to feel safe.
That's a big deal because actually, you know, we made this ride today and like all of us are relatively like experienced riders, but actually for some people, it wouldn't be as comfortable.
I agree, yeah. So things like the mirror make a big difference.
Got your horn on there?
I have a horn on here.
Well, Kyle, I really do appreciate the time. I mean, for me, it's just to like capture a moment in time of like what these experiences. I mean, you got to think like, you know, you're seeing a lot of these plans laid out as an architect and like thinking about like future infrastructure. What's it going to be 5-10 years from now? As like, and it's interesting too because if you think about it, like LA used to be a bike city actually in a lot of ways, right? And then it kind of car came in and really took over, and now we seem to be going back in that direction on some level. So it's interesting to think about that, like you're, you know, a piece of that history of this, like, you know, renaissance.
So I track planning code and the politics of that in California. There's legislation that constantly gets pushed forth in California to turn all single-family lots into 2 building lots or 4 building lots, and there'll probably be a reduction in parking with that. So that's an example of like planning for that future.
But really, I really do appreciate it, and I know like I'm sure it's enough like kind of wrangling with the kids at 7 a.m. in the morning. But it's been fun, and it's been cool to get to know you a little bit better and to get to know this kind of side of California. Sweet, thanks guys. See you guys soon.